So welcome back to the Suburban Chateau. I'm Stephanie Everett. We're on the move again today, and we're visiting the Allegheny Portage Railroad National Historic Site, and more importantly, if you can see behind me, the skewed arch bridge. And I'll tell you why that's so important a little bit later. Well, our story starts here at Canal Basin Park in Hollidaysburg, and that's the town where Steve and I live. And we're at a cute little park. Most people here just know this as the Canal Basin Park, and it's a great little playground as well. But it was put here to commemorate the canal era and the impact that Hollidaysburg had on the canal era. And this area was all built up and is sort of the jump off point for the story of that Allegheny Portage Railroad, and eventually the story of the Horseshoe Curve, which we're going to visit as well. And I thought this would be a great place to start the whole tale. And here we are, and I just happened to be here on a Friday afternoon before school's letting out. Hardly anybody here, which is kind of neat. And we're walking across that bridge, and they actually have a little area that almost depicts that whole canal experience. Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania was established in the late 1700s following the Revolution by William and Adam Holliday. And by the 1820s, it was still just a little sleepy town, and it was dotted by farms on the outset. And in 1827, in fact, Hollidaysburg only had a population of 76. It was very backwards. It was about that time that Pennsylvania's state canal system was looking to connect the entire state via a canal system. And they had determined that their western basin would be located in Johnstown and the Stony Creek and Conemaugh rivers. And they were looking nearby Hollidaysburg in the Frankstown section, in exactly where Steve and I live, very, very close to there. And they had selected a spot for that, and the farmer wouldn't sell the land to the Pennsylvania Canal System. So they started to look at Hollidaysburg as a secondary location and determined there was enough water to support the canal system, and they put the canal in downtown Hollidaysburg. By 1837, in just 10 short years, the population had risen from 76 to 3,000. Now, they built this all by hand. It was a great system of locks and canals, and especially a 600-foot section that ran right past where this little park is located right now. In total, they had 3 basins of water, but the idea was that these locks would raise up the canal boats and then prep them for going up and over the Allegheny Mountain Range. And I'll tell you more about that when we get to the Allegheny National Historic Site at the Portage. But this is where we start off, this little sleepy town of Hollidaysburg, that canal system that you see right here that they have depicted in our little park, and how it was the center of this amazing transportation industry. Another beautiful structure here at the Canal Basin Park is the Riser House, which was the home of the butcher in town, and he was also the lockmaster at Hollidaysburg for the canal system. And this was beautifully restored and opened back to the public in 2002, but it almost didn't happen. I just read a recent local anecdote that our fire company in the town was given permission to burn this down prior to 2002, and they were getting ready, they were training, and they were doing a controlled burn. They went in and they were told to smash all the windows out. When one of the firefighters went in, he said he just absolutely could not smash the windows. They were too beautiful, that all the woodwork and trim was so beautiful that they all stopped and immediately went back to reconsider the burn. And here it is today. One of the neatest parts of this park, and our kids even played on this too when they were little, but they have a depiction in the playground of a canal boat and kind of the various stages of the canal boat, and up top and coming down and down here. It's pretty neat. We're gonna look back here. Here's another look at the riser house. Sun is kind of fighting us at the moment, but we'll do our best. It's important to remember that this canal industry was very short-lived, and by 1850, they realized that the canal system was obsolete because of the advent of the railroad. So it was a short but very exciting time in our state's history. And from here, we'll take you to the Allegheny Portage Railroad at the top of the mountain, where the steam engine would have pulled that canal boat all the way up the mountain. And as we cross this bridge, we cross a branch of the Little Juniata. See if I can get a little footage of our Little Juniata. Part of the Pennsylvania Main Line Canal, the Beaver Dam branch of the Juniata River. After we left the Canal Basin Park, we drove to the top of the Allegheny Ridge, and this is where the Allegheny Portage Railroad National Historic Site is. It's an incredible visitor center, and we've been here many, many times, but it's important to see how the canal boats that started out in Hollidaysburg, how in the world did they get to Johnstown? Well, they had to be raised up and over this 1,400-foot elevation of the Allegheny Ridge. And here is the lovely visitor center at the Allegheny National Historic Site. And we'll show you some of the other buildings here as well. Now, the Allegheny Portage Railroad National Historic Site is one of my favorites because of the way it has been designed to sort of seamlessly join in with nature. And they have some beautiful walks here, beautiful picnic areas as well. And you can see right in the distance, they have a depiction of that engine house number 6. And here is engine house number 6. And here's a depiction of exactly how they would have hauled those canal boats up the mountain to engine house number 6. And there's the rail. As we enter engine house number 6, it's important to think what the whole purpose of these different engine houses were. You can see the boilers that would have provided the steam in order for the engines to carry those boats and transport people up and over the Allegheny Ridge. And as I said before, it was an elevation of 1,400 feet up and over that Allegheny Ridge. In total, there was 36.65 miles of railway included in the Allegheny Portage Railroad. And there were 10 different inclined planes. So there would have been many more than one engine house along the way, but those shorter inclined planes would bring those canal boats over varying grades to get up and over the mountain. So it was quite an engineering feat in the early 1830s, if you can imagine. And it's just sort of amazing that we have this incredible way to look at it and think about the history of that transport. Now, one of my favorite buildings at the Allegheny Portage Railroad National Historic Site is the Lemon House, which is a stone house that sits right on top of the ridge. And the reason I love it so much is that I can see it's the site of the Portage, because right behind the house runs our old Route 22. So many times as I was driving to Johnstown or to Evansburg, I was able to see the house along the way. Now, the Lemon House was owned by Samuel Lemon, and that's how it gets its name. He operated the stone house as a tavern from 1834 to 1847, and he would have served the passengers of the Allegheny Portage, and you can see how close that house is to that last engine house number 6. And it's just an amazing home and full of the history of that era. Now, Steve and I hopped in the car, and you can see the Lemon House through the car window as we're passing it, as we're heading down the mountain. And we have one more important stop, and that, of course, is the Skewed Arch Bridge. And this is commemorating the 100th anniversary of the opening of the old Portage Railroad. So this was placed here in 1934, and it was to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the old Portage Railroad in 1834. And here we are in 2022. So almost getting close to another milestone here. The Skewed Arch Bridge is quite an engineering feat, and an engineering firm won the bid for the Skewed Arch Bridge in 1832, and it was constructed by 1834. And it was built at this odd angle to accommodate a bend in the Turnpike Road. If you've ever been on Old 22, there is a natural bend in the road there as well. On the south side, the bridge is 60 feet wide, and on the north side, it is 54 feet wide. So it's got a natural skew to that bridge. When it was built, they used no mortar. The stones were laid and hand hewn and then laid down. Later on in the late 70s and 80s, they did point those stones to make sure they were structurally sound, and it was renovated using some mortar as well. But it's just got that incredible angle, and you can just see from looking at it what an interesting engineering feat it was just to create this and to accommodate that bend. Now, the special thing about this Skewed Arch Bridge and my personal relationship to it is that this is the location where my husband Steve proposed marriage. And we were out on a date. We had gone to the Horseshoe Curve. We were visiting all of our favorite date spots. And we walked up on top of the bridge and we sat down, and he asked if I would marry him. And of course I said yes. And so for us, that's kind of a fun spot to revisit. And one of the reasons he thought it would be neat is because it is right along the road. And I was going past there a lot with symphony rehearsals, and we would look up and see the Skewed Arch Bridge and kind of remember that special day. And the day we visited here, it just was such an incredible day in terms of the leaves and the beautiful fall atmosphere. And it's just always fun to go and revisit that Skewed Arch Bridge. And I'll share with you too, on the 1-year anniversary of our proposal, Steve gifted me with a wonderful pen and ink print of the Skewed Arch Bridge that he had actually commissioned from a local artist. So I'll show you that as well. Thanks so much for joining us today on this edition of the Suburban Chateau.